What is going on, everybody? It's the France. I'm here for UnScripted episode number 127 for your July the 12th, 2020, with some big news coming out of New Japan Pro Wrestling on Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, or Saturday night, their time. Evil, Mr. L.I.J. himself, one of the L.I.J. members who has had a tag team with Sonata. He's been a part of L.I.J. for I don't know how long. The fiance to Io Shirai has turned on L.I.J. and has joined the Bullet Club. After the end of the New Japan Cup, Evil won. He and Tetsuya Naito came out. They looked to do their fist in the air pose, which Naito had his fist up. Evil was slow to do it, put it up, and then two-sweeted and hit him with a STF, or an STO. So now Evil is a part of the New Japan Cup, part of Bullet Club. That is surprising. I didn't see that coming. If you had a bingo card for crazy things that happened in wrestling this year, I don't think anybody would have saw a pandemic happening. Pretty much professional wrestling going on hiatus minus WWE, AEW, and Impact Wrestling. Nobody would have predicted that Evil would be joining the Bullet Club. I think all three of those would have not been on anyone's bingo card for the year. But here we are. What does this mean? Could Evil possibly win the IWGP Heavyweight and Intercontinental Championship? That is yet to be determined. As I am recording this, the Minion is going to be getting underway in a few hours. So if you're ready to watch something for all of this, make sure to check out the Minion. It is going on. Or if you haven't seen it yet, or you're waiting for it to go have English announcing, which I hope it has it live, which would be nice. Evil versus Naito is going to be an interesting match, just on the precipice of having Evil turn heel the day before. It's great to see New Japan back. I'm pretty sure they do have a small select amount of fans in their crowd, which I find hilarious. That WWE wanted to be one of the first event to have fans, and New Japan's doing it already. But that is a little update on New Japan. I'm shocked. I'm sure anyone's shocked. Hit that subscribe button, comment down below, like or dislike this video, and let me know in the comment section below. Are you surprised that Evil has joined New Japan, the Bullet Club of New Japan Pro Wrestling? Now, my thoughts on this is that New Japan, I keep saying New Japan, but Bullet Club was originally Gaijins, which are foreigners to New Japan Pro Wrestling. It was a bunch of guys like Prince Devitt, Machine Gun Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows, Tama Tonga, Bad Luck Fale, the Young Bucks, and a couple other ones that were foreigners who felt like they weren't getting the respect that they deserved, and they were not going to take it anymore. They were going to disrespect everything in New Japan. They were going to be the outsiders. They were going to bring a new world. They were going to be pretty much a better version of the NWO taken to 11, and they were going to usher in a new era in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Then you had it was Takahashi who joined, who was the first Japanese wrestler to join. Then you had Mr. Captain New Japan, who became the first Bone Soldier. He ended up getting released from New Japan because of drug problems or alcoholism. Then you had Taiji Ishimori join as the Bone Soldier. And, of course, then you had Jado and Gato join. And now you have Evil join. And I'm pretty sure there's another one or two. It kind of takes away from... And I know a lot of the appeal of the Bullet Club actually died and has eroded away from the days of the original Bullet Club to when the Elite became a thing, and they had that intergroup thing where you had the Elite versus the original against the OG club. So that lasted for a little bit until, of course, the Elite left and came back to America and started AEW. But it just feels like that they're adding in Evil, which, yes, Jay White's not there. I believe I guess he lives in Florida. Kenta's not there. I believe he still lives in Florida, probably. So that's two big names for the Bullet Club who are not there right now, and they want to have. I don't know if I don't believe that Evil would have joined the Bullet Club if it wasn't for the fact that Kenta and Jay White, two of the biggest names in the Bullet Club right now, are not there. And of course, Kenta's another Japanese star who is in the Bullet Club. I just think that the Bullet Club, the original way the Bullet Club was lost, and it's not as big as it used to be. I mean, yes, AJ Styles coming over made a big splash and helped broaden the horizon for the Bullet Club. Adam Cole did his thing, Hangman Page, the Bucks, and Marty Scurll, and so on and so forth. But it just seems like it's the Bullet Club. Yes, the Bullet Club's lasted way longer than the NWO has, and that's because they rotate. They've had people come in who were there to start. You had Balor there for a while, who was Prince Devitt. He's gone. He's now in WWE. Doc Gallows, Carl Anderson, they're gone. They were there for a while. They're probably coming back whenever they're allowed. You've had others. You've had Scott Hall's son in there one time. Kenny Omega, of course. The Young Bucks were in there. It's like you just don't see, like, well, the Bullet Club is starting to fade away, so we're just going to continue to use the same stars over and over. They do. I mean, yes, you have the Gorillas of Destiny who have been there for some time, but it's not like you're pushing the same guys, and it's like the Bullet Club's not on top all the time. So you have the Bullet Club that we have in 2020. Evil's a part of it. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens at Dominion. If you are if you're watching this after Dominion's over, let me know what you thought of the match. I think that we have a shot to see a new double champion as Evil. Like, there's no point of having Evil turn on Tetsuya Naito not to give him the championships, I should say. So I just feel like they're going to have, of course, the Bullet Club's going to get involved. They're going to screw it over, and of course, we're going to have a little bit of war between Naito and Evil, with both probably as whatever members of LIJ and whatever members of Bullet Club they have at their disposal, going to make this really interesting to see what happens. Would I want to see interference in a match? No, I want to see what these guys can go out there and do together against each other. But it wouldn't surprise me if, of course, that's what the Bullet Club used to always do. They would interfere in big matches. They would help their guys win as much as they could. And now here we are. So look out for that match. It's going to be interesting. I don't know the rest of the Dominion card, but that they definitely took the intrigue. Which, honestly, when Evil won the match and he won, and of course he's going, like, the winner's going on to face Naito. What were people thinking was going to happen? They had to have done something. You're not just going to be like, oh, well, here we go. We have Evil versus Naito for the title in a match with respect. I just wouldn't see that happening. So, again, should be fun. I hope there's a lot of anger and animosity between these two. Naito needs to bring his serious face, because Naito is not usually... Naito, to me, when I ever see this guy come out, it's like he doesn't take everything seriously. He's just... he's... What do I want to say? Unless it's something that's really something he needs to be serious about, he doesn't take it as serious as he should. I can't think of the word I want to call it. But in the end, it's going to be interesting to see what happens moving on from here. I've talked about New Japan enough. Let's talk a little bit about Monday Night Raw. Now, this past Monday on Raw, I missed completely because my internet provider decided they were going to have an outage from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 1 o'clock in the morning, aka 11 fucking hours of no internet. Also, no TV, because Spectrum runs everything on one fucking line. So if your internet's out, your TV's out. If your TV's out, your internet's out. So I couldn't do anything, and it wasn't just me. It was the entire fucking town of my area was out. So I couldn't be like, oh man, my internet's down. What's your? How about yours? And No, it was just, it was a pain in the ass, and it sucked. But from what I read, what I saw, I missed fucking nothing. This show was terrible, and it showed in the ratings. The ratings for Monday Night Raw, which was taped, featuring Raw Women's Champion Asuka defeating SmackDown Women's Champion and Women's Tag Team Champion Bayley in the main event, drew a 1.687 for the USA Network. That is down 2.8% from last week's 1.735 million viewers in the second lowest viewership in the show's history, going back to the May 4th episode, which drew 1.686 million viewers. The first show for this week's show, the first hour drew 1.697. Last week's show drew 1.862. The second hour drew 1.752. Last week, it was actually the second hour was up a 0.001 millionth view over last week, because it was 1.752 this week. It was 1.751 last week. Then the second hour, and this is the thing. The first hour was down majorly from 1.862 to 1, and it was to 1.697. But the second hour was up a little bit, and the third hour was down to 1.612, but that's up from last week. That's not something you usually see. When WWE Raw goes on the air since 2012, it's usually hour 1 is where everyone comes in, hour 2 is where it starts to decline a little bit, and then hour 3 it drops off completely to very, very low ratings. Not this week, which is something I guess WWE can have somewhat of a little bit of victory. The fact that, ratings started off really low, they went up a little bit, they dipped a little bit, but they were up compared to last week. This is Bruce Richards' Monday Night Raw. Vince McMahon removed Paul Heyman from his position in the creative aspect and merged again the creative teams. Why? Because Vince McMahon wanted to get the Raw ratings up. Vince McMahon figured, him and Bruce Pritchard put their heads together and decided, well, what can we do to get the ratings up? What can we do to get those numbers up? Let's bring in Christian to supposedly have his first match in 6 years. I believe 2014 was the last time he had a match. 6 years, which he's not cleared to compete. So what do? Let's bring in 72-year-old Ric Flair during a fucking pandemic, which, again, not an actual pandemic. It would be a lot worse if this was an actual pandemic, but I digress. But the guy who almost died 2 years ago, he was on death's door with 1 foot through the door. Literally. That was how close he was. 1 foot through the door, and somehow, someway, he still made it back, and he's still with us today, even though he looks and has no business being out there. But yet, they continue to use him. Now, I'm 30 years old. My chances of getting COVID and dying from it are small. Ric Flair, on the other hand, who has very, very bad health conditions, again, almost died 2 years ago, gets that from somebody. His chances of dying are exponentially higher than mine or half of the roster in that company. So why they can... hell, Sheamus can do a Zoom call. Why can't Ric Flair? Daniel Bryan can do a Zoom call. Why can't Ric Flair? You could have somebody there teaching him or showing him how to do Zoom or something. I don't know. If you could have Daniel Bryan on Zoom while AJ Styles was defending the title against Drew Gulak, you can have Ric Flair at home with somebody setting it up for him so he doesn't have to be there. WWE is going to regret it if Ric Flair ends up catching this entire thing, because that's going to be just a terrible, terrible thing. But what else do? They bring in The Big Show or The Big Slow, because that's ratings, I guess. Big Show squashed Andrade and Angel Garza last week. Randy Orton beat not Angel Garza, not Andrade. Randy Orton beat one of the Viking Raiders. Randy Orton has been an established star since 2002, 2003, whenever he became part of Evolution. Big Show made his debut in 1999. Ric Flair has been a star for 40 years. Yet, I mean, you had Randy Orton and Andrade and Angel Garza against the Big Show and the Viking Raiders. Why not have Angel Garza or Andrade pin the Big Show? You know what that could have done for those guys to have... Yes, she could have probably had Randy Orton hit an RKO on Big Show, and then Andrade or Angel Garza gets the pin. But no, you have one of the Viking Raiders, I believe it was Hanson or Rowe, it was probably Rowe, who gets pinned by Randy Orton. Why? Because Vince McMahon is sure hell-bent on any little bit of credibility Paul Heyman built into anybody younger than Seth Rollins is thrown out the window. Seth Rollins cannot be put into this category anymore. Seth Rollins has been in WWE on the main roster for 8 years. He does not fall into the category of a Viking Raiders or a Ricochet or a Cedric Alexander who've maybe been here for a year or two. He's on veteran status right now. But yet, Aleister Black, what have they done with him? Nothing. Buddy Murphy, what are they doing with him? Nothing. He's with Seth Rollins, but he's not doing anything. Everything that Paul Heyman built and started to build for this brand. Yes, having COVID, this whole COVID thing, not having crowd, it hurts the product. Absolutely. But it's hurting the product so badly because... And Paul Heyman tried to convince Vince McMahon that it's going to take time, 18 months probably, to get somebody over. You need Randy Orton to get somebody over, but Randy Orton's doing the Legend Killer again. Randy Orton doing the Legend Killer gimmick in 2002, 2003, 2004 was fine because Sergeant Slaughter, Ric Flair, Mick Foley, and all these other, I'm not Ric Flair, but, legends, put him over, helped make him credible to be a star for the future. If Randy Orton doesn't do that Legend Killer gimmick back in the 2000s, he's probably not the star that he would be. Maybe things don't work out with him. Maybe he just flounders in mid-card after he fails in Evolution if he doesn't do the Legend Killer gimmick. Does Randy Orton need to bring back the whole Legend Killer shit in 2020? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This company needs to start investing in younger talent. I mean, I guess doing that with Matt Riddle on SmackDown. I mean, Matt Riddle has won 2 matches. He beat AJ Styles on his debut match. He beat John Morrison in a fantastic match last week. Next week, he faces AJ Styles for the Intercontinental Championship. Why? Because WWE cannot wait. Of course, that match is probably going to go to a no contest because Baron Corbin's going to get involved because Baron Corbin has to be an enhancement talent for Matt Riddle. This company just doesn't seem to get it. We don't want to see nostalgia anymore. It's enough of this shit. Nostalgia's fine every once in a while, and yes, the ratings showed. The night after Backlash, when Christian came out, when the Big Show came out, and when Ric Flair came out, the ratings showed that it worked for that week. But you can't do it every single week. Having a 72-year-old Ric Flair on, I think he's 72, but a 70-plus-year-old Ric Flair on Raw every single week, taking up time from guys like Ricochet, guys like Cedric Alexander, who, oh, by the way, the last time we saw them get squashed by Bobby Lashley. Why? Because Vince McMahon wants to kill any chance for anybody to get over. Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. What have those two done since they lost to Vink and Thorne. Which, by the way, what happened to Vink and Thorne? They looked like they were going to be one of those teams that WWE was going to invest a little bit of time into. Then they had that match with Ricochet, Cedric Alexander, and R-Truth versus Vink, Thorne, and MVP. And guess what? MVP lost to R-Truth. Which, by the way, R-Truth is no spring chicken either. R-Truth is in his 50s. The dude made his debut back in 2001 as K-Quick. 2000. It was actually 2000. As K-Quick, the new tag team partner to Road Dogg after him and Billy Gunn broke up. But yet, WWE pushes him and does this whole 24/7 shtick, which nobody fucking cares about. The 24/7 shtick doesn't even make sense in this whole entire pandemic thing, because why would you have this 24/7, like, why you can't have like 10, 15 guys running after the 24/7 champion trying to make their comedy shtick stick. It just doesn't work. The 24/7 championship needs to be abolished. It was something that it was supposed to bring up ratings. It was supposed to be something that would get you excited. Oh, this championship can be defended 24/7, 24/7, 365. Anybody can go for it. Raw, SmackDown, NXT, NXT UK, 205 Live. But it was a joke from the start. When you have somebody introduce a championship, and that championship, the way you win the championship the first time is have it laid in the middle of the ring, and talent have to scramble to grab it. That's when you know this title was a joke. And then on top of that, Titus O'Neil only held the title for about 30 seconds. Then what happened? He got rolled up, and I think it was Bobby Roode who won it. And in the end, R-Truth has held the title for 37 goddamn times. Why should we care about that championship? Why should you care about that championship? Why should anybody care about that goddamn championship? You shouldn't. This company, Monday Night Raw, is going to suffer week in and week out. Will it get back to the two? I honestly think, and this is my thing, I honestly think, if and when we can ever get fans back, if there is ever that, the crowds that you will see will be small. The fans watching at home will be even smaller. I just don't think that WWE's Monday Night Raw is going to get back up into the twos, or the high twos, or the mid twos anytime soon. There will have to be a lot of change in this company for that to happen. On top of that, they also introduced a new United States Championship, a title when people were wondering, and this was something that came out on Twitter after the championship was unveiled. How can WWE get this championship done like this while AEW's TNT Championship is still incomplete? The truth of the matter is, and the reason that was able to happen is because that championship has been completed since December of 2019. WWE just has not introduced it until this past Monday. Why? Hell if I should know. WWE could say, oh, they were waiting for the right time or anything. Well, obviously, and this is the thing, having the championship introduced to us, the new version, with not the champion, but his challenger at Extreme Rules. Oh, I'm sorry, the horror show at Extreme Rules. Just shows you how much WWE cares about Apollo Crews. That title is going to be probably coming off of him next Sunday. Just because Vince McMahon wants to destroy everything and anything that Paul Heyman has built up. Apollo Crews winning the U.S. Championship was the very last thing, pretty much, I believe it was, that Paul Heyman did for this company, for Monday Night Raw. And then he got axed, and Bruce Pritchard took over, and the show has gotten worse and worse and worse. But not as bad as SmackDown. That's the honest truth. SmackDown, holy shit, what the fuck was that? I know I did a review, but this is a follow-up portion. What the fuck was that on SmackDown? The karaoke thing? Even Naomi has come out and stated that they were making chicken salad out of chicken shit. She did not like that gimmick, that entire idea. I didn't either. Anybody who says that, oh, the karaoke thing was an awesome time, you're out of your fucking mind. If anybody thinks that the karaoke special from this past Friday was great television, you need your head examined. That was absolutely awful. It was awful. But WWE is going to do what WWE is going to do. Honestly, it felt like Monday SmackDown this past Friday was WWE throwing in the white flag. They gave up. They were just giving up. They're like, you know what? Fuck this shit. We're just gonna throw everything out there. We're just gonna throw shit against the wall, and we're not even gonna fucking try. I mean, yeah, Bayley and Sasha Banks versus Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss. Anybody thinking that was a title match? It was not. That was a non-title match. It was advertised as a non-title match. I'm pretty sure I read on Twitter a couple days before that it was like the next day after Monday Night Raw, it's like Bayley and Sasha Banks will take on Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss non-title match, and that's what it was. It was an okay match. The New Day versus Cesaro and Nakamura. Why did you waste our time? Everybody and the brother saw that coming after what happened last week, where Kofi got beat, Cesaro came back, he went to grab a table, and it was like, wow, okay, we're going to have a tables match at Extreme Rules. What does WWE decide they're going to fucking do? Let's have a tag team match that goes to a no contest, which, by the way, there was, 2 no contests in this show? You had, after the karaoke special, you had Naomi and Lacey Evans, who apparently is heel again, which obviously that was going to happen. But here's the thing. Lacey Evans going heel right now is irrelevant. Bayley has the top crown for the big bitch heel in SmackDown right now. So anybody trying to be a heel and be anywhere close to the title picture, it's kind of irrelevant. She could turn heel, she can do whatever she wants with that. It's not going to matter. Bayley is your heel, and she's going to be that heel. The only thing that I'm afraid for is Sasha Banks. When we get to SummerSlam, say SummerSlam it's gonna happen in August, and August is, of course, and then, of course, the month after that is going to be, I don't know, I think it's going to be like Night of Champions or something, or Clash of Champions, whatever they're going to call it. But Sasha Banks, if you look at her title history, outside of the 2 women's tag team titles that she's held, which have been her longest title reigns, by the fucking way, she has never held a championship out on the main roster, singles championships, for more than 30 days. She hasn't. WWE has not allowed her to have a lengthy women's championship reign. I mean, hell, with her and Charlotte flip-flopped the titles 4 times in 2016. That was a fucking joke. It's like you had Sasha win it at SummerSlam. A week later, Charlotte won it. Then Charlotte held it to, I think, the next pay-per-view. And then Sasha won it. And then Charlotte won it again. Then Sasha won it again. And then Charlotte won it again and then moved on to Bayley, who Bayley won it. And guess what? She held it in going into WrestleMania, which at that time, if I'm not mistaken, going into WrestleMania, 1 month before WrestleMania, or the pay-per-view, because back then you had Raw and SmackDown had their own separate pay-per-views, which they needed to stick to. If WWE knew how to book right, that would have been fine, because you would have had it would have gave talent who you won't see on TV or on pay-per-views a moment to breathe. You would have better storylines. You would have better opportunities for everybody if you would have kept it that way. But no, they got cold feet, and they said, you know what? Well, this isn't working for us, so we're going to move back to everybody on the same pay-per-view. And that hasn't worked out for them whatsoever. The Big Four should have been the only time you see Raw and SmackDown talent on one show, but that's neither here nor there. So, yeah. Going into the Raw pay-per-view before WrestleMania, It was Bayley versus Charlotte. Charlotte was the women's champion. Charlotte, at that time, was being touted as undefeated in pay-per-view matches. Had not lost a match on pay-per-view. So, we're all thinking, I know I'm not the only one who thought this, we're all thinking Charlotte Flair is going to win, no doubt about it. Then they're going to do a 4-way at WrestleMania, and that's when Charlotte's going to lose. But what did WWE do? Charlotte lost on a B-level pay-per-view. I'm no Charlotte Flair fan. I'm no Charlotte Flair mark. I don't want to see Charlotte Flair getting another championship opportunity as long as I live, as long as she's around. But even I know that if you're booking this woman to win every fucking pay-per-view match she's in right before WrestleMania, why the fuck would you have her lose the last pay-per-view before Mania? It just makes no fucking sense. But then, of course, that's WWE. But everything just doesn't work out. WWE has this problem with actually booking long-term. Honestly, Becky Lynch, the man gimmick, the entire 1-year run of Becky Lynch as women's champion was the best booking they've done for a woman ever. Becky hardly lost. When she did, most of the time it meant something. It meant something was going to happen. But it's just like, it's surprising at how WWE is just so poorly doing all this. Monday Night Raw's bad. SmackDown, they gave up this week. It looked like, honestly, I don't know who booked this show. I mean, last week, didn't I put in my title, last week's show was 2 great matches with Matt Riddle versus John Morrison and then Gulak versus AJ Styles. That first hour of last week's SmackDown was phenomenal. I would say if SmackDown would have been a 1-hour show and that's all we got for that week's SmackDown, I would have said this is the best SmackDown in 2020 in the empty arena era. I would have said that with confidence because it would have been true. But then you had that second hour and everything went downhill. Then of course, this week you had, well, we ain't got enough ideas, so let's replay Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman from Money in the Bank, which nobody cared back then. Nobody was going to care this time. But that's typical WWE. They just want to do things their goddamn way. Fuck the fans. Fuck everything else. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. Just, I don't know what else to say about it. Now, congratulations, as we want to move on here a little bit. Congratulations to NXT UK superstar Amir Jordan. He has married his fiance, who no idea who it is. She looked beautiful. He put a picture out on, I think it was on Twitter, and he said, "Married man, #lockdown in lockdown." Congratulations to him. A little brightness in the world that we've had over the last 4 or 5 months of being forced to be in our houses and whatnot. Now, backstage news. Now, this is something we need to talk about. Kenny Omega going into this AEW, everyone was like, Kenny Omega is going to be this big star. He's going to be the top guy. He's going to be the first champion. He's going to be the guy who puts this company on his back, gives us 5-star classic after 5-star classic after 5-star classic, gives us the match of the year candidates we all expected. But that hasn't happened. Kenny Omega has been nowhere near the top. After the match at Double or Nothing last year, where he lost to Jericho, I guarantee you, so many people, I think including myself, said that Jericho is going to lose this match, and Kenny Omega is going to become the first ever AEW World Heavyweight Champion. Then, of course, Hangman Page won the Battle Royal, and was like, there's no way they're going to do this, so it's definitely going to be Jericho. But the direction of Kenny Omega's character in AEW has been criticized in the past by fans for his lack of success as a single competitor in the promotion. The idea behind Kenny Omega taking his time to build other talent and strengthen the tag team division during the first year in AEW is because he was set to be built as a star in year 2, according to Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer Radio. He noted that this might still be the direction AEW takes with Omega. Omega has responded to criticism of his AEW singles career in the past, noting just because his career might not be the same place it was at his New Japan peak, that doesn't mean he's not finding success elsewhere, because he said, and I quote, "Because I decided to take a different path in my career, because I'm not doing these long, drawn-out 45-minute to 1-hour matches in single competition, it doesn't mean that I'm not the same guy. This isn't about tooting my own horn, but it's like I'm now helping run a company that has live television every week," end quote. Quoted again, "I am part of a very successful tag team with Hangman Adam Page, a guy that I have a lot of chemistry with, and I'm existing in a division of guys that are amongst the top of all the tag teams on all of the planet, and showing that it takes more than just having a good, long singles match to be called the best in the world," end quote. Omega will be teaming with his fellow Elites member Matt Jackson and Nick Jackson to take on the Jurassic Express, Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, and Marco Stunt on this week's Fight for the following episode of AEW. Now, first and foremost, everyone should have lowered their expectations when Kenny Omega came into AEW. New Japan Pro Wrestling and All Elite Wrestling are two totally different promotions. You weren't going to see 45, especially since New Japan Pro Wrestling does not do weekly television and AEW does. There's no goddamn way Kenny Omega is going to be expected to do 45 minutes to 1-hour matches every single time he's out there. Him taking time to build all the talent, I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it's good for the game, for the long run, but I also think that AEW really needed that top talent. Outside of Jericho, Moxley, I would say, and Cody, you really don't see or feel like anybody is at that top tier like you would expect. The Young Bucks, of course, are one of the top tag teams, but they don't honestly feel like the top tag team. Like, they want to say they're the best tag team in the world. I remember back when after FTR had their first match, I believe it was against the Butcher and the Blade, the Young Bucks came out and said they are the best tag team in the world. And I'm thinking that they're one of the top tag teams, but they don't feel like the top tag team. I mean, yes, tag team tournament, they lost the first match by putting over Private Party, which was good. But they've lost a lot more than you would think a top tag team would lose. So, Kenny Omega, yes, everyone has a right to criticize if they want to. Just don't be like pissed off and everything that your favorite is not being the 5-star classic guy that you remember from New Japan Pro Wrestling, because that's just not going to be him. If you want Kenny Omega to be that 5-star classic, 45 minutes and an hour matches from New Japan Pro Wrestling, then go watch his New Japan matches. He's not in New Japan Pro Wrestling anymore. He's in AEW. They are two different companies. They're going to be two different wrestling styles. New Japan Pro Wrestling has their strong style. That's the way they go. AEW has so many different styles for Kenny Omega to work with. Will he be the top star in AEW eventually? I believe so. I mean, Kenny Omega is just too good to be second fiddle to anyone for too long. The only thing when it comes to Kenny Omega, for him to be the top star, he needs to be a heel, in my opinion. When this whole tag team with him and Hangman Page started, it was when Hangman Page, of course, was drinking a lot. Of course, they're not doing that gimmick right now because they don't have crowds and the COVID bullshit. But we all pictured that Kenny Omega was going to be the babyface in the thing, and Hangman Page was going to be the heel. I honestly think that Kenny Omega, to be that top star, is going to need to turn on the Elite, cast into the side, and be a vicious heel again. One of the biggest problems with Kenny Omega, Cody, and the Young Bucks trying to be heels at all, if any four of those guys, even Hangman Page, is that they are too over. We know what they do in the back, We know what they're doing for professional wrestling. They have being the elite. It's just going to be really hard for anybody to accept them. They would have to do something dastardly, very, very viciously, to even for anybody to really accept any of those guys as a heel. And just talking shit or talking down to the fans is not going to do it. So if they want to turn heel and be a heel, guys, they're going to have to do something more than just like, oh, well, you guys stink, or you guys suck, or your sports team sucks. They need something more than just cheap heat. Now, continuing on with AEW, there is something else that's going to be happening this Tuesday. As we know, every Tuesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, AEW has presented Dark every single week since the week after they started. What they were doing, and what they still continue to do, is that before and after each show, they would tape a few matches. Now, of course, COVID-19, they've kind of had to do a couple of other things. They've had Dark actually taped up to 11 matches. I believe they had a couple weeks ago. But this week is going to have a very interesting match because, as we know, this past Wednesday, Taz reintroduced the FTW, or Fuck the World Heavyweight Championship, and handed it to Brian Cage. The significance of the FTW Championship is that it is not sanctioned in any company. No company owns the FTW Championship. So, it can be brought out at any time and defended at any time. And that is what's going to happen this coming Tuesday. Brian Cage will defend the FTW Championship against Brian Pillman Jr. on Dark. So Brian Pillman Jr. will get his shot at the AEW, not the AEW, but the FTW Heavyweight Championship. Brian Pillman, of course, is contracted with MLW still. He's trying to get out of his contract to become, I guess he's trying to get to AEW, which would be a smart play to him, because I would not even want to be in WWE if I was Brian Pillman Jr. I mean, I would hate to even imagine what WWE would try to do to exploit the fact that, hey, this is Brian Pillman's son. Look at this guy. It's Brian Pillman Jr. Pillman. They would do something. They would do something scummy and terrible, and I wouldn't even want to be a part, see it. But Brian Pillman looking like he is probably going to be on his way to AEW in a full-time basis eventually. He did take on Sean Spears this past Tuesday in a losing effort, but he's getting an FTW championship match. Why Brian Pillman Jr.? I don't have a fucking clue. I think they should have... Of course, this is not the first title match that we've seen on Dark. Kenny Omega, who last I checked is still the AAA Mega Champion. I don't know if that's true or not. But when he was champion, if he's not anymore, he did bring the title to Dark once and defended it against Jack Evans. I think it was only once. And that was a hell of a match. So I'm hoping that I was hoping they would do Brian Cage versus somebody who actually could give him a little bit of a challenge so he could actually have a few minutes of a match and not just 5 seconds, because he's going to go out there and kill Brian Pillman Jr. So check out that coming this Tuesday. Well, here's some good news hopefully for AEW if we want to move on from that. AEW could be getting closer to having fans back at their TV tapings for the show in Dark. The NFL's Jacksonville Jaguars, which is owned by AEW lead investor Shad Khan, announced today that the event expect no more than 25% capacity at TIAA Bank Field for the upcoming season due to COVID-19. It was announced that the Jaguars are now scheduled to play 9 games at TIAA Bank Field in 2020, with the first preseason home game taking place on Saturday, August 29th, against the Washington Redskins. The regular season opener is scheduled for Sunday, September 13th, against the Indianapolis Colts. The 25% capacity for TIAA Bank Field means that around 16,791 fans will be spaced out across the stadium, which that's not a bad crowd. I mean, it's a small crowd for an NFL game, but that's not a bad crowd to start out with. The stadium, of course, capacity is 71,000. Fans will be required to wear masks, and everyone will have to follow CDC social distancing guidelines for the COVID-19. The Jaguars noted that once the season begins, any future increase in capacity will depend on the development of the health and safety fronts. AEW, of course, has taped the last 2 months the last 2 months at Daly's Place, which connects to TIAA Bank Field. They have used TIAA Bank Field in the past, most recently for Stadium Stampede match that aired as the main event of Double or Nothing in May, which saw the Elite and Matt Hardy defeat the Inner Circle. AEW recently allowed non-crew members into Daly's Place in their tapings a couple times ago. Now, honestly, I don't know why AEW hasn't done this yet, but if they want to add fans to their shows without having to be inside the Daly's Place, use the stadium. Use the stadium. That's really simple. You have this huge ass stadium that you could put. You could have. Hell, for all I care, you could have people allowed to, if you wanted to, if you could cover up the field, drive their cars into the stadium and watch the thing through their cars. I don't know. It'd be interesting, but AEW closer to having fans, I could see that coming. Honestly, if out of the two companies in WWE or AEW right now, who I could see better having a chance to have to have fans than WWE. Why? Because they took precautions they took this virus and this entire thing more serious than WWE ever did. If a positive case would have never happened, WWE would have had fans. It's funny because the week that the positive case came out was the first week that we saw friends and family in the crowd. That was the same week that the Street Profits decided to go behind the plexiglass and dance around with NXT talent and friends and family who were at the PC. So, WWE having a chance to get fans back is not going to happen for WWE. It's going to be so funny because Vince McMahon is going to blow a gasket when AEW has real fans, which they have already, which I don't understand how Vince McMahon says that he wants to be the first to have fans in the crowd when AEW has been doing it already. If you watch the last few episodes of TV during Wednesday nights, there were actual people in the fucking front row. I mean, you have this set where there's like a big, huge section of bleachers, and then there's like stairways, and then two small sections. And for whatever reason, the two small sections have fans in it or people in it, and the big section has nobody. I never understood that. Now, this past Monday, as we mentioned earlier, WWE had Rey Mysterio and Kevin Owens take on Seth Rollins and Murphy. The winner got to pick the stipulation. Rey Mysterio and Kevin Owens won. So Rey Mysterio decided to name an eye for an eye match. Now, if you remember back in February, I think it was early February or late January, Jon Moxley, who was sporting an eye patch at the time, took on Santana, who was sporting an eye patch too, in what they dubbed as an eye for an eye match. Now, the AEW's version of an eye for an eye match was one guy's eye was patched, the other guy's eye was patched, and they have a normal wrestling match. WWE's version of an eye for an eye match is going to be one man has to lose his eye. WWE has confirmed that you have to pull out the other person's eyeball with your hand to score the victory. This is stupid shit right here. The eye for an eye match in that Wyatt Swamp fight between Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman will be these two taped cinematic matches at the upcoming pay-per-view. According to the latest episode Wrestling Observer newsletter, the reported that WWE will tape the eye for an eye match and then add some form of CGI effect to simulate an eye being pulled out of the conclusion of the bout. It was also noted earlier in the week, Rey Mysterio has been working without a contract for WWE for some time, and he continues appearing on television each week despite the fact that he could show up at AEW or even Impact Wrestling at any time and place that he wants to. Rey has apparently been working on the same terms as his original 18-month contract that was previously active. There has been negotiations for a new contract between both parties since the deal with Rey Mysterio expired. It was noted how Rey has asked for a raise but was denied by Vince McMahon. The observers noted Rey Mysterio didn't accept the reasoning behind his raise being denied because he's aware of the high expectation top officials in the company have for the profits this year with the lucrative TV deals placed with Fox and USA. Yes, WWE, even without crowds, even without going on tour, is going to make more money this year than they ever have before. And yet this company decided they were going to fire 100+ people or furlough them because of the pandemic. Which is funny because outside of a couple of bad eggs, Impact Wrestling has not fired anybody who hasn't justifiably deserved to be fired. AEW hasn't fired anybody. MLW hasn't fired anybody. Ring of Honor hasn't fired anybody. New Japan Pro Wrestling hasn't fired anybody. And they rely on ticket sales and merchandise at these fucking events that they have. Yet the only company that is going to make more money than anyone else was the only company to fire people. It's absolutely just disgusting. He also distinguished that he's a big enough star that an exception should be made for him. With the situation the way it is, Rey is legally allowed to negotiate with other companies to see what's in store for his future if he doesn't choose to continue with WWE. He has worked some dates with New Japan Pro Wrestling prior to returning to WWE, but missed some time scheduled dates due to injury. He has also worked the main event match at New Japan Ring of Honor's combined All-In show in 2018, promoted by AEW's Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, which was sabotage for time due to Kazuchika Okada and Marty Scurll taking way too much time to finish the match. If he does choose to go elsewhere, the original storyline that involved infections and possibly losing his eye is apparently a way to make it appear to WWE fans that if Rey shows up in another company, he is not medically cleared to fit like he was back in WWE. It is believed that he will go wherever the money is best. As for Rey's son Dominic, he has apparently forgotten about for months. However, when negotiations started surrounding Rey Mysterio's contract, Dominic was brought back into the storyline for his current angle against Seth Rollins. The inclusion of Dominic is one reason WWE is believed to be the frontrunner in keeping Rey Mysterio. Rey has reportedly signed an 18-month contract when WWE was pushing for a 3-year minimum from the stars. He was scheduled to do a main event at All In. At the same time, he rejoined the company, and WWE actually pushed him to cancel his appearance, although Rey refused. This is the reason he is also has a good standing relationship with AEW management. This is the funny thing, is that if Vince McMahon thinks that Rey Mysterio is actually going to sell a bum fucking injury, he's out of his goddamn mind. I hope this whole CGI thing happens. Rey Mysterio loses his eye due to CGI, and then he goes to AEW and doesn't fucking sell the injury. He goes out there and he buries the eye for an eye immediately. But that's up to Rey Mysterio. That is up to Rey Mysterio. The only reason that Rey Mysterio would stay in WWE is because he knows for a fact if Rey Mysterio was to leave WWE at this time, then any opportunity his son would have to have a fair shake in WWE goes out the window. Vince McMahon would use Dominic as an example to get back at Rey Mysterio. Dominic would be out there getting jobbed out, beat up, embarrassed, probably thrown into a dumpster, made to look like a fool, being punished for what his dad decided to do. That's how petty Vince McMahon is. That Dominic, who probably wants to do this and be one, like, Dominic wants to have a match with his dad wants to have a match with Dominic. So, why won't they schedule a match where instead of doing this eye for an eye bullshit, you have Murphy and Seth Rollins versus Dominic and Rey Mysterio. If Rey Mysterio loses, Dominic has to join the Monday Night Messiah. If Seth Rollins loses, Seth Rollins has to shave his head. That would be a fun one. Bald Seth Rollins, could you imagine? But that's WWE for you. They just want to be petty as fuck. Now, one more thing here. I mentioned it before. I believe I mentioned it on Friday. WWE, there's rumors going around that WWE is going to do an all-women's pay-per-view again, Evolution 2. But this time, it's not going to be revolving around Ronda Rousey. The only reason that pay-per-view ever happened was because they had Ronda Rousey. This one is going to be surrounded by Tessa Blanchard. Apparently. Here's one little small problem with that Vince doesn't seem to get. Tessa Blanchard was fired from her Impact contract. Tessa Blanchard was stripped of the Impact Wrestling Heavyweight Championship because she refused to work during a pandemic. She refused to leave Mexico. What are they going to do to ensure, especially since you've had 20 to 30 plus people on your roster in your company test positive for COVID-19? Are all of them going to recover? 99.9% of them are probably going to recover. But that doesn't excuse the fact that you had 25 to 30 people test positive. If I'm Tessa Blanchard, why would I want to sign on the dotted line, go to WWE, and risk my health and my well-being because they haven't cleaned up their sloppy shop yet? Why? Why would they even think that Tessa Blanchard would go out of her way to leave Mexico, come to the Performance Center, to do Evolution 2, to make a name for herself, only to possibly catch COVID-19 because things like positive cases are still happening. Just Evolution 2. Apparently, also, is not going to be a pay-per-view. It's going to be a network special. The week after SummerSlam. Does anybody see a problem with that? You have to build a SummerSlam. You have 5 weeks till SummerSlam. And in those 5 weeks, you're supposed to build to Evolution 2? Are you out of your fucking mind? What are people gonna, how are you going to have Evolution 2 even be a thing right now? I mean, if you want to do one, that's fine, but it's got to be the only pay-per-view of that month, and it's got to be properly billed. The last one didn't get proper billed because it was sandwiched between Survivor Series and Crown Jewel. Nobody cared. The only match that people actually cared about was the match with Bayley and Sasha Banks versus the Riot Squad, I guess. That was that one, right? It was Bayley, Sasha Banks, and Natalya versus the Riot Squad. And then you had Lita and Trish Stratus versus Mickie James, and I can't remember who else it was. Oh, and Alicia Fox, I believe it was, because Alexa Bliss was injured. But the Raw, look at Friday. You had karaoke. We can't have swimsuit contest anymore. We can't have bikini contest anymore. We can't have lingerie pillow fights anymore. What can we do in the PG era to give these women time that they don't have any other way? Let's have them go out there and butcher the Honky Tonk Man's theme song, American Dream, The Time to Play the Game, and With My Baby Tonight. Yeah, real good. And people want an Evolution 2 after everything that you saw these women have to go through. Tamina's terrible. Dana Brooks useless. Lacey Evans is useless. Naomi she's a talented woman, but they're misusing her too. The only top women on SmackDown right now are Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, Bayley, and Sasha Banks. Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. Where the hell have they been? And you know what's funny? We haven't seen Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, Otis, and Tucker in about 2-3 weeks. What you want to bet after Extreme Rules is over, Otis and Mandy Rose are going to show up on TV, and it's as if the relationship never happened. Everything that happened between them was just a figment of our imagination. WWE is going to drop this storyline, and there's going to be no real conclusion. Otis will lose the Money in the Bank briefcase to Baron Corbin, and go back to being in a tag team with Tucker where he fucking belongs. Does anyone really expect Otis to cash in, and if he does cash in, succeed? If you do, you're an idiot. But that's all I can think of this week. Thank you for listening. Hit that subscribe button. Comment down below. Like or dislike this video. Find me on Twitter at The France Club. Find me on twitch.tv/The France Club. Find me on Instagram at The France Club. And I will see you guys here, hopefully, for Monday Night Raw. As long as my fucking company, my Spectrum, doesn't decide to do an 11-hour maintenance again. Until then, my name is The France, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.